All right. Welcome back to another theme of the month with Coach Busy, mental performance coach. This month of March, the theme is Be Your Own Best Teammate. I want to start by kind of recapping what we've talked about so far this year in January and in February. January, we talked about building a championship mindset. So I showed you guys maybe some mental skills that we can use to become great volleyball players, starting to think about the mental side of the game, just kind of introduce it. In February, we talked about building confidence. So using our imagination to build on these mental skills to become more confident volleyball players at practice, which translates to games. Our next step is something called self talk. This is something you might have heard of before. It's totally okay if you haven't. Self talk is basically the things that we say to ourselves throughout the day. So it's not things that you've thought about before, but if you've ever, like, for example, been taking a test in school and you're trying to remember the information, you're saying, hey, you studied this and this is what it said and stuff like that. That's self-talk, giving yourselves information or giving ourselves encouragement throughout the day. I think athletes use it almost all the time. And it's a lot of the time we get instructions from coaches and we get support from teammates, but we really talk to ourselves a lot, probably more than we think about. So you use it kind of in all of these settings. I'm going to show you guys how you can use it to become really supportive of yourself and build a lot of confidence on the court. So the most important thing to think about is our self-talk helpful? The things you're saying to yourself during volleyball games, during practices, during drills, when you're on the bench, whatever it is, are you saying things that are really helpful or hurtful? So a helpful example would be to say to yourself, you're doing great, keep working hard. Especially if you're struggling, maybe you've missed a couple passes or a couple hits and you stop and think, "Hey, you're doing great, keep working hard." That's really helpful self-talk. It's really supportive. Hurtful self-talk would be saying something like, "Why are you playing so bad?" Or "You're not doing well today," or "You're really struggling today." It's not stuff that's actually going to support you. It's going to hurt you and maybe make you play worse and feel less confident. So that is an example of hurtful self-talk. And you might be thinking, well, sometimes I don't realize what I'm saying to myself. It's kind of hard to think that way. That's totally fine. Let's kind of bring it out and think about what stuff do you say to your teammates during games? Are you saying things that are going to help your teammates, like, "Hey, you got this, next pass"? Would you ever say to a teammate, my example of, "Why are you playing so bad?" I'm going to guess all of you will say no. I hope all of you say no, that that's not something you would turn and say to a teammate. And I want us to start thinking about it that way. Like, we are our own teammates. We are part of the team. You guys are players either on the court, on the bench, at practice. You are part of the team. And I want us to start thinking of ourselves as really important teammates. And the way we support ourselves and build ourselves up is the same way we would to a teammate or a friend. So think about, what would you say to make a friend feel better or a teammate feel better that's struggling? And how can you in turn use that and say it to yourself too? So when we kind of are in big moments in games and the game is moving fast, I don't know how much we really are using self-talk. And even with you guys being young, it's maybe something you're not thinking about a lot. But I think in volleyball, it's important to figure out what we're saying to ourselves, maybe before we serve, or when we're in serve receive, or in between points, or we're on the bench, or even in between matches. Kind of these like pauses. Are you treating yourself really well and supporting yourself and saying really nice things to yourself, or are you saying things that aren't so helpful? And maybe you're not saying anything at all, and that's totally okay. But I think it's important to start thinking about how you act in these pauses in volleyball before you serve, like I said, or in serve receive, or whatnot. And are you saying things that are going to help you, or are you saying things that are going to hurt you? So I think it's a really good thing to start with, is maybe after practice is thinking, well, during this drill, when I was out, I was really hard on myself. Or maybe during this drill, when I was out, I was actually giving myself a lot of support. So if you look at our worksheet for the month, Be Your Own Best Teammate, it says talk to yourself in big moments the way you would a teammate in order to best prepare yourself to succeed. So I gave you guys a lot of examples of helpful and positive self-talk. Um, you can pause and read through these. I think these are just examples, and I want you to add your own if you think of some. as long as they kind of follow this format of really positive self-talk and really helpful things. Like, I am a great hitter. Serve to me, I will pass it. I can handle this. I want you to think about, what do you most need in those moments that you're kind of struggling? Like, what do you wish your teammates were saying to you or your coaches were saying to you? Or what do your teammates say to you and your coaches say to you that you can in turn say to yourself? So if it's something that's on my list, if it's something that's not, that's totally fine. Feel free to pause the video, write down two or three phrases that stick out to you the most, two or three that you would want to hear or you want to tell yourself in big moments that you know are going to be helpful. So, for example, saying, if it was me, I could write down, I'm a great hitter, keep working hard, I can handle this. I'm going to write down those three, and I'm going to keep this worksheet in my volleyball bag. So, before practices, I can read through those. Before games, I can read through them. So, they're kind of in my head. In tough moments, I can say, I can do this. I'm a great hitter. I can handle this. I am resilient. Whatever you want to choose that you can say to yourself. And I want to stick to 2 to 3, because if we're adding a ton of stuff, it's a lot of thinking, and volleyball is a lot about kind of reacting. So I don't want to add too many thoughts to your head, but I think it's really important to start adding really positive thoughts to our heads just to start building confidence. So if you're still working on the worksheet, pause the video. If you're not, let's continue on. So what's the next step? First of all, I want us to keep our self-talk sheets and read, like I said, read through it before practice, read through it before games. Those phrases that you can kind of repeat in your head in big moments, to know that these are things that you should say to yourself to keep yourself confident. Utilize self-talk at practice to figure out which phrases help you the most. Maybe the ones you chose aren't being helpful, and maybe the ones you chose are really important, really helpful. But it's really important to start practicing these at practice. The way you would any skill that you're kind of learning, I want us to practice these at practice. And then once you kind of get a hold of it, once you work this self-talk into your head in these like pause moments, bring them into gameplay at tournaments. Start thinking about, before a match or during a match, how can you use what you've practiced into tournaments? So I think these are our three next steps. As always, if you guys have any questions about the video, about the worksheet, any other thoughts, feel free to reach out to me. Stop me if you see me at the Sting Center. Um, whatever it is, email me, call me. I'm happy to talk a lot of this stuff out in person or over the phone or on email. And as always, go Sting. Good luck this month, teams.